Okay, we will now go to our guest. Elliott, are you with us?
I am.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, as always, for your patience. And we are also joined by Nazrul Islam, the lead author of the World Social Report 2021. So, Elliott, I will give you the floor and then maybe turn to Nazrul. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Stefan. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here for this briefing. I'm very pleased to launch the World Social Report 2021, entitled Reconsidering Rural Development. This World Social Report is one of DESA's 2 flagship publications. We often call for converting challenges into opportunities. Responding to COVID, the United Nations has called for using the lessons of our experience with the pandemic in planning our recovery so as to rebuild better. The report we are launching today is an example of putting that idea into practice. It calls for a new type of rural development, inspired in part by the experience with COVID-19. Until recently, rural areas have been viewed mostly as the place for agricultural activities, with a residual role, mainly as a source of labor for the expansion of urban economies. Rural development was considered as an appendage of urban development. Unfortunately, such a residual view of rural areas has often not been beneficial for either the rural or the urban populations. For rural populations, it has led to neglect and low productivity, and in urban areas, it has often led to slums and squalor. The World Social Report 2021 calls for ending the rural-urban divide. It notes that while ending rural-urban divisions has been the dream of progressive social thinkers since the 19th century, new technologies have now made it possible to convert that dream into reality. Rural areas no longer need to be limited to agricultural activities only. The experience of COVID-19 has shown that with adequate connectivity, a whole range of economic activities previously thought to be urban can now be carried out from rural areas. This implies a paradigm shift, and the World Social Report 2021 is calling for rethinking rural development in light of this shift. It is true that many countries have achieved high labor productivity in agriculture. Many countries have also adopted the explicit goal of ending the rural-urban gap in the standard of living. These efforts led to the concept of in situ urbanization, under which the material standard of living of rural populations reaches levels similar to those of the urban populations. One of the important contributions of WSR 2021 is to offer a detailed investigation of this concept, both conceptual and empirical. In particular, it examines 3 case studies of in situ urbanization, namely in Japan, China, and Sri Lanka. The analysis shows that there are different ways of achieving in situ urbanization, and individual countries can learn from these experiences in adopting and following in situ urbanization as a model of rural development in their own countries. The World Social Report 2021, however, goes beyond the existing models of in situ urbanization. It calls for not only reducing the rural-urban gaps in income and standard of living, it also calls for closing the difference between the ranges of economic activities that people in rural and urban areas can engage in. Once that goal is accomplished, the objective of reducing the gaps in income and standard of living will be achieved as a natural consequence and not because of some special policy measures. WSR 2021 calls for moving rural development to the center of attention for another important reason. Most of the natural capital that human beings enjoy is located in rural areas, and yet the way agriculture and rural development have proceeded in many countries so far has led to a serious depletion of this capital. Success in achieving sustainable development requires that land and water resources be conserved and that their management be improved. The COVID-19 experience highlights the painfully negative consequences of a failure to do so. Researchers have shown that the continued loss of forests and wilderness has been a contributing factor to the recent recurrence of zoonotic epidemics and pandemics, like the COVID-19 itself. Thus, setting rural development in the appropriate direction is necessary, not only for the rural population itself, but for all of us. The role of technology becomes very important from this viewpoint as well. Technology can allow to switch to precision agriculture that offers higher productivity with less consumption of natural resources. New technologies can make organic and smallholder agriculture and circular economies more viable. Technology can also help to reduce the enormous volume of food, about a third of the total, that is currently being wasted at different stages of the food cycle. This will require a change in social norms and values. The prospects that the World Social Report 2021 lays out will, however, not be realized automatically. Instead, it will require concerted efforts on the part of policymakers, rural producers, researchers, and the public in general. Rural populations comprise about 67% of the total population in low-income countries and about 60% in low- and middle-income countries. About 1/5 of the rural population live in extreme poverty. 4 out of every 5 people who are below the poverty line are in rural areas. Many of them do not have the basic physical and social infrastructures that we take for granted. They lack electricity, to say nothing about broadband internet connections. They lack basic sanitation, ready access to quality basic healthcare, quality education for their children, affordable transportation. And thus, while the prospects are bright, the challenges of rural development are also daunting. It will require a heroic effort to realize the potential that the new technologies are creating for rural development. The WSR 2021 calls on all of us to take on this challenge. It has put forward a new thought of ending rural-urban divides using the new technologies and through the necessary accompanying changes in institutions. I sincerely hope that everyone will heed this call and respond appropriately. Thank you very much. And Stefan, with your indulgence, we might hand over now to my colleague Nazrul Islam, who will present some of the details of the analysis.
I'm very indulgent. Please, Nazrul.
Thank you.
Nazrul, you need to turn on your mic. Hold on a second. We need to make sure your mic is on.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you very much for that excellent introduction by ASG Harris. Now, can I get the share facilities to upload, to show the PPT file?
I don't think that works. You could try, but I'm not sure that will work.
Because I don't see the share button active on the screen.
Yeah, no, I don't think you can do it on this platform, unfortunately.
Oh, okay. Okay, in that case, let me tell, since our ASG has provided an excellent introduction to the report, let me just go straight to the content. Well, we have a report more than 150 pages long, and it is divided into 5 chapters. Chapter 1, introduction, and basically we have arranged it following the principle of sustainable development, which distinguishes 3 dimensions. So we have main 3 chapters focusing on economic, social, and environmental dimensions of rural development. But it begins with introduction, which offers the concepts, and also it ends with a separate chapter of policy recommendations, where we collect all the policy recommendations that emerge from the substantive chapters. Also, the report has an executive summary, just 5 pages long. And in addition, we have produced an overview of the standard size of SG report, around 8,500 words. So readers can engage with this report at different levels, just depending on the amount of time and interest they have in this report. But we have made these different levels available. This report was produced by DESA with a team from EAPD2 division, so it's also a collaboration across divisions of DESA. Now, the importance of rural development, as ASG Harris has already emphasized, we have 4 out of 5, that means 20% of the people who are in poverty live in rural areas. So poverty, the remaining poverty is basically a rural phenomenon. And for low-income countries, 67% of the population are in rural areas, and even low-middle-income countries have their 60% population in rural areas. So for them, development is an issue of rural development. But the question is how to achieve rural development. And until recently, rural development has been mostly viewed as an appendage of urban development. And it was thought that focus should be placed on urban development, and that will somehow manage or take care of the rural development. But experience has shown that it doesn't. So what we have proposed in this report is a new idea that we are familiar with the idea of rural-urban disparity, and the discussion of how that can be reduced has been going on. It's an ongoing discussion. But the new idea that we have put forward in this report is that we can go beyond. We can go beyond discussing reduction of disparity and move forward to a new phase where we can view and actually engage with the goal of ending the rural-urban divide itself. Why? Because we have the technologies now. The answer lies in the technological progress, because initially the rural-urban divide arose because of technology, because we had this new industrial revolution which required a congregation of people in one place to carry out industrial activities. But we see now a kind of reversal of that process when that kind of physical congregation is not needed, neither for trade, nor for administrative functions, nor for industrial even activities, because though it is a bit futuristic, but manufacturing activities are getting converted into kind of boutique operations under this 3D technological change. So that kind of undercuts the rationale of the division between rural and urban. So that's something that we are trying to asking everybody to register and think of rural development in that light. Now we see that there has been the COVID experience has been kind of a trigger or kind of provided a additional stimulus to see the changes. These changes were creeping in, but COVID experience showed that a whole range of activities that were previously thought to be urban can be carried out easily from rural areas if the necessary connectivity can be ensured. So that is the paradigm shift that we are drawing attention of everybody to be aware of. And meanwhile, the other thing that we're also trying to draw attention in this report is that rural development is also needed, particularly for the health of the planet. We have achieved agricultural output growth, etc., but at a tremendous cost to the health of the planet. More than 60% of the water resources are being extracted, and mostly for agriculture, which has led to the exhaustion of many rivers. For example, the Colorado River in the USA does not reach the sea. It just dies before it can reach that its delta. So that's just one example of how the progress has been achieved at great cost of natural capital. And as S.G. Harris already mentioned, this loss of forest and wilderness has been a contributory factor for continuous loss of animal habitats, which has contributed to this recurrence of zoonotic diseases. So COVID experience has also provided another angle to kind of reconsider rural development, view its importance, and move it to the center of attention instead of considering it as a kind of a residual issue. So that's the other thing that we want to highlight in this. We highlighted in this report. And this report, of course, we are not naive. We know that this idea of ending rural-urban division on the basis of new technologies is a goal that still remains quite. It's a goal that's not immediate for many countries, which have a lot of even catching up with the first and second industrial revolution to do. Not to speak about benefiting from the fourth industrial revolution. Millions of people still lack electricity. They don't have hygienic sanitation. They don't have schooling. They don't have healthcare, etc. So those are the basic things that we have to kind of, of course, deal with. But the point is, the issue is that the report reveals the urgency of those goals, because as a whole, the global technological frontier is moving very fast. And if the countries and populations who are lagging behind and still to catch up with the first industrial revolution, second industrial revolution, then the stark possibility is there that they will be lagging further behind. So that is another important kind of, important point that this report wants to emphasize. So in the immediate future, definitely we need to overcome these hurdles, these basic gaps. And that would lead, the chapter 2 of this report highlights that the fact that rural development has to begin with the increase in agricultural productivity, and then translation of that productivity gains into significant expansion of non-farm activities, so that there is a wider base for rural employment. So it provides detailed set of policies about how that can be achieved. Similarly, Chapter 3, which focuses on these poverty and inequality issues, it notes the recent progress that has been achieved in reducing poverty, but it notes that, still, as I began with as we have already highlighted, that much of the current poverty is still in the rural areas. So the recent progress has not really, it has made a dent, but the more work needs to be done in that regard. And the chapter 4, which focuses on environmental issues, as I said, it provides a detailed analysis of how the depletion of the natural resources have occurred, and more importantly, how the new technologies can help us now to switch to precision agriculture, etc., organic agriculture, circular economy, which can allow to raise productivity with but with much less use of natural resources. So those are the issues that immediately needs to be taken up. So finally, in Chapter 5, we kind of summarized all these recommendations, and we have structured it in 3 levels. At the top level, we have identified the strategic principles that we are recommending for policymakers in all countries to kind of consider in thinking about going forward rural development. Then at the second level, we have collected the policies which are cross-cutting, which can help for more than one dimension of sustainable development, economic, social, and environment. And then at the third level, we have a more detailed set of policies focused on each of these individual divisions. So I think this is not only the content, it comes with a very radical new message, which is that time has come to kind of finally ending this rural-urban division, because the technology frontier has now made that goal feasible. And so the rural development needs to be viewed from that perspective. And then we have we have also arranged the policies in a way which is accessible to a reader. And as I said, it has been presented, a reader does not have to start from page 1 and to page 165 or whatever. We have provided executive summary, we have provided overview. So any reader can just, depending on his or her level of interest, can choose whichever level, at which level he or she would like to engage with the discussion. But we want everybody to engage in this discussion. It's a new phase, and it will require participation and engagement on the part of all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nazrul. Thank you, Elliott. If there are any questions from the journalists online, open up your mic. Okay, I mean, Nazrul and Elliott, as you know, it's kind of a crazy busy day today because of all the Middle East and the stakeout. So we will make sure anyway to share all the information. The presentation will be on the webcast, but I think the journalists have scattered to cover the Middle East meetings. But thank you for coming. Thank you for the presentation. And I want to add just for journalists to know that at 5:30 p.m., the President of the General Assembly will speak to reporters at the second floor stakeout. That's at 5:30. So Elliott, thank you, and Nazrul, thank you very much.